We're starting our last session, our last panelist session anyway, and I just wanted to comment about Brittany and Greg in the last panel. Of course, Brittany worked at Old Dominion, and one of my best friends in the business is Wood Seelig, the AD there, and he just always had great things to say about Brittany and that entire staff. And so I think she was a big part of that success that Old Dominion had. And of course, I've gotten to know Greg higher since he's come here to ETSU, and he has been just tremendous, just been tremendous in his energy and enthusiasm, excitement. So I really appreciate those two taking time out to share their thoughts and ideas. So this panel is going to be a little bit different. I think we're going to talk a lot about the whole junior college brand, about how to really elevate that brand. And very fortunately, the two people we have, on this panel are Dr. Chris Parker, who I've known for quite a long time. Dr. Parker went through my grad program in VCU, and he survived somehow or another, and we didn't damage him too bad because he's doing a great job as the president of the NJCAA. And then so we'll kind of talk about some things as we move this thing along. And then Brandon Goble, who has helped so many junior college coaches, so many junior college players. His organization is called JUCOAdvocate. So I think he really advocates for both junior college players, junior college coaches. And I notice he has a new program that he's kind of invested his time and energy in called Project Rise, which is helping junior college coaches move to a different level, one that they aspire to be. So appreciate you guys being on. But Chris, let's talk a little bit about, junior college athletics, junior college basketball in particular. Just kind of share with everybody a little bit your vision for where you see and what needs to happen next to, give more opportunity and access to, both junior college student athletes and junior college coaches.
Yeah, the term that has come to mind the most is the best kept secret. Well, of course, we don't want junior college basketball or any junior college program to be the best kept secret. We want the notoriety for our student athletes, our coaches, the individuals to be out there in the forefront. And, the last couple of years being on national TV for the first time ever certainly has been able to highlight that with the NJCAA network, being able to showcase some of these individuals. And again, whether they're coaches, student athletes, whatever their roles may be, is again putting that out there to educate people. I heard in the last session Penny talk about owning it, and owning the brand, owning the expectation of what you're doing and when you're doing it is critical for our success. Because again, that negative stigma of JUCO, it's only a stigma. It's just a thought of, well, you had to do this, you had to do that. But ask our people, they chose to do this. They're making a choice to better themselves, to get on the field, to get on the court, and to coach and to play right now and make an impact. And we want to tell that story every day. And it's a phenomenal story. If you look at all the success stories that have come along, the lives that have been changed, that's what we do. And we do it better than anybody else in the business.
I think that's so important what you just said. And I just want to share a little bit, of kind of a similar type of mentality. When I was at VCU, when I got to VCU in 1986, VCU was perceived as this very urban institution that basically had a lot of adult learners. It was 35 acres of campus, so you can imagine how small a campus that is for however many students. We had 15, 16,000, a lot of night school, a lot of part-time people. And then, we were in the shadow of the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, William & Mary down in Williamsburg, University of Richmond right there in town. And all those have these pastoral, very traditionally beautiful campus. Well, we're downtown Richmond, all concrete, almost no grass. And one of the problems we had is that, the staff, when I got there, they perceived themselves as a negative. And so we really had to change that mentality and say, this is a positive. And, unfortunately, our coach, who was that time our men's basketball coach, he kind of had that mentality that we were a second class, university. And therefore that impacted, a lot of things. So that was one of the main things we had to do. We really had to change that brand. We had to take pride in what we were. We are what we are. We're proud of what we do. For me, the folks that I've run into, of course, at VCU and ETSU, we recruited many junior college players. And I'm going to tell you, they were all great. They did what they were supposed to do. They came out of good programs. They were good community citizens. They graduated. They stayed in touch, and they still do a lot of things involved in both ETSU and VCU. So I think, one of the critical things, be proud, be out there, be glad of who you are, because you're doing great work. You're giving student athletes an opportunity. You're developing them. You're helping them. You're changing their lives. And I think that's got to be kind of the message. I don't want to dominate this, but I think that's kind of, I think that's real.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, we have to own it. We have to grab the bull by the horns and own the fact that what we do is what we do. And we all have, aspirations to move on and do bigger and better, but to be the best that you can be at your job right now, that's what we can do as NJCAA professionals, to be the absolute best that we can right now, given the situation. Because that old mentality of make it better for the next person, I've had that from the start. I was lucky enough when I left you at VCU, I started the first ever NJCAA program in the Virginia Community College system. And that was a trailblazing opportunity. And now there are countless more people that have followed suit. So every day we do something, take pride in it, and make it an opportunity for others. It's never been about me or myself. It's been about, where do the opportunities lie to help more and more people? And that generational aspect of what we do as leaders, as coaches and mentors, it provides opportunity. And our motto is opportunity start here. And that's, again, what we are so proud of, and what I'm so proud of our coaches and administrators all across the country for doing, is providing that opportunity and owning that brand, the NJCAA brand of, yes, we are National Junior College Athletic Association. We don't have the funds, we don't have the resources that everybody else does, but we make 10 cents out of every nickel every day. And nobody else can do that traditionally.
Well, that's what I always said about VCU. It really makes you feel good when you do more with less. I mean, if we beat Virginia or we beat, whomever, in any sport, I mean, that was always pretty amazing to me. But I believe we did it because we had dedicated coaches who worked really hard, and they recruited really quality student athletes who were willing to work and improve. And I think, that's what, junior college is. You have really good coaches who work their butt off, and they recruit kids who are willing to work and get better. So I think that's part of, what everybody needs to kind of understand and be willing to tell that story. Well, I don't want to dominate this. Let's get Brandon Goble on here. Brandon, you've been involved with, a ton of junior college coaches, student athletes. You've changed lives by connecting those guys and gals. So just kind of give me your impressions, because you're really in the foxhole with all these folks. So talk a little bit about your impressions of junior college coaches, junior college players, and what they need to really think about.
Well, it's interesting because when I got into this, I didn't come from a junior college background at all. The way that I got into doing what I do now was doing some data and analytics stuff with some Division I guys, and met a kid that is almost kind of the perfect epitome of what junior college and the NJCAA is all about, in Solomon Heine, who was a kid that, a lot of you guys know the story by now, but was a kid that had gone into the military out of high school and was a combat veteran. And when he got out of the military, wanted to go to play college basketball, didn't really have any route to doing that, and needed to go to junior college. And so, was able to help facilitate that with little to no background, myself on really what he was getting into. And he had no idea what he was getting into really at the time either. And went to Midland Junior College, and then on to a 4-year university, and played and got transferred and got his master's, and played a little professional basketball. And now he's the COO of a company. And his story is just such an incredible testament to what the NJCAA can provide, where, somebody with this incredibly unique background that a lot of people, they didn't really know what to do with him because of his age and his, he hasn't been playing and all this sort of thing. And the NJCAA was sitting there with this opportunity for this young man at the time, right? He wasn't a kid anymore. And the NJCAA sat there with this opportunity that he was able to take advantage of. And that just spoke such incredible volumes to me at the time of, this is somebody that really didn't have opportunities in all these other places. And the NJCAA provided this path for him to be successful and get to do the things in life that he wanted to do. So much so that once he went on to his 4-year university, that's when I started JUCOAdvocate and really dove into what exactly the NJCAA was, what junior college was, the kinds of opportunities that it can provide. And now have been fortunate enough to either view from the sidelines or be directly involved in all of these incredible stories that wouldn't exist without the NJCAA and junior college. And that's what's always so funny about the whole stigma thing is, there's this stigma of junior college, whether they're not good students or, guys did something wrong. And you know what, in all walks of college sports and all walks of life, we're going to come across those things, right? Like, don't tell me that every high school kid that everybody's ever recruited at the, Division I level that was a qualifier is a darn saint and just the best freaking student out there. That's not the case. So the NJCAA has this, this unbelievable breadth of stories where now we're working with kids that are refugees from war zones or kids that, come from these incredibly difficult backgrounds or these incredible fortunate backgrounds. And it's this massive amalgamation of every type of kid from every walk of life that all come together in a team unifying concept. And it's unbelievable to see, because even at the 4-year level, a lot of times some of the things that we get to see in the NJCAA, you don't get to see, at least immediately, at the 4-year level without junior college. Jerry Cabantu, who's down at New Mexico Military, is a war refugee from Congo. Without the NJCAA, Jerry Cabantu would never have an opportunity to go on to a 4-year school. Now he does, and those are the kinds of things that I just, every single day I get to be either part of the story, I get to see the story, I get to tell the story. And that's what, the stigma thing, when I saw that, and it just, everybody talks about junior college stigma. And I'm like, man, if people really knew what the true stigma of NJCAA is, and that it's this incredibly giving opportunity rather than the last chance. That's why the name Last Chance U drives me crazy, because it's not a last chance. It's an incredible chance.
Well, I think that's a great point. I think it's so unfortunate that came out, because that's not representative of anything, and I think, it is what you said, these young people who are given this opportunity, they're given access. And I think so many of them take the opportunity and do something really well with it. And, so I think that's great. But so Chris, let's go back to you and, what are some of your thoughts of what some of these coaches can really do to help, create this national brand and allow people to really understand how valuable junior college athletics are and what they can, how many people they help? What can they do?
Yeah, so absolutely. So number one, like I said, doing your job to the highest level possible, but undercutting or undermining some of those things that you hear about. Well, the junior college team got there, changed on the bench before the game. Don't do that. Run your operations like you are the NBA. Run your operations in a format or an exposure point that you are wanting to be the elite of the elite. Don't carry yourself with an expectation of you roll up. Yeah, you may have driven the van yourself to the game. I coach junior college baseball. I know what it feels like to drive a bus. You may have driven the van to yourself, but don't let your players roll in looking like they're from 14 different teams. Carry a uniform mentality. Carry an impact of this is who we are. That identity, both for your college and for the NJCAA as a national organization, matters, because as you roll in and as you carry yourself, people are watching. They're watching you as coaches. They're watching how your players act before the game, during the game, and after the game. So again, that mentality of expectation of excellence. I tell people all the time, you cannot expect perfection, but you can expect excellence. If you expect excellence of yourself and of others, then all of those mental aspects go away. All of those avenues of defeat go away. Yes, you're going to win and lose on the court. After you lose a game, I don't want to see brawls. I don't want to see bad sportsmanship. That's a reflection on you as a coach. That's a reflection on your athletic director. That's a reflection on your student athletes. Carry yourself in defeat just like you would in victory, understanding there is a difference. But that respect factor of I was defeated, the next game I'm going to be better. The next game I'm looking to win, because you're not going to go undefeated. None of us are going to go undefeated. But how you represent your schools and carry that mentality and that expectation of excellence and a visible factor of who you are as a coach, as an organization, is a representation of everybody. Again, I can't tell you how many presidents call and say, this school came into my gym and I can't believe they acted that way. I'm going to call their president and tell them what I saw. And I'm just like, that's a reflection of the entire school. So carry yourself, carry your teams, carry your individuals with the highest expectation as if you're walking onto an NBA court.
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the things, that from an athletic director standpoint, that I saw both at VCU and ETSU was one of the things that really, I think really helps is, like in the last 3 or 4 years here at ETSU, we had Isaiah Tisdale, we had Trey Boyd, Jerome Rodriguez, Devontavious Payne, Jermaine Long, and I may be forgetting some, but one of the things that really I think helps is these young men really had a chance to engage in the community. And once the people in the community got to know Romy or Pun or Trey or Man, any of those guys, they were really impressed. You know what I mean? So I think that was one of the things that really kind of started to make people here in Northeast Tennessee say, these are really good guys, sharp guys that really we love representing ETSU. And it wasn't just the basketball piece of it, it was the community piece. And I think, that's really an important, that's kind of a grassroots way to help build that brand. But I think, that was really important here in Northeast Tennessee that, and people, they may have had some, predisposed ideas about, junior college players. But once they really got a chance to engage these people, they figured out, they're really, they're top of the line guys, who we're proud to, know. So I think that's an important piece of it too. Brandon.
Yeah, I tell people we have 70% of our colleges have the term community in them. Mm-hmm. So there is a natural expectation that you're engaged in your community. You get people to know your community. If you're the basketball coach and you take your team out to a community function, that same respect factor, I mean, you're representing everybody. And again, you're going to earn fans. You're going to earn supporters. You're going to earn donors just by being engaged and showing them that the products that you're putting on the court and in the classroom are of value. You're changing lives in more ways than one. And when you engage your community, I promise you, there is hands down evidence that those people will show up, support you, write checks of support, be of advocates of your program and yourself, as long as you do that.
For sure. Brandon, you've probably seen a lot of that throughout the country and in your JUCOAdvocate situation.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I talk to guys a lot about is, when you have that community involvement, when you have somebody that's unique and different, when you have somebody that has a success, whether it be academically or within the community or something that, they're doing that's beyond just what's on the court, scream your successes. Right. I always tell guys, like, make sure everybody in the flipping country hears you. It's 2020. We've got social media to where I can go to Africa and film stuff in the middle of nowhere and get that out to coaches and tell stories. You can do it from your community college. Scream about those successes that you have with those individual players and show everybody what's going on in your program. You know, one of the things that you have the advantage of being a junior college coach that's different at the Division I level, and Andy Farrell, anybody else on here can tell you, is it's probably infuriating a lot of times when you want to put something together, whether it be a video or a graphic or whatever, and all this litany of rules you have to follow about who you can hire and what you can and can't do. And it's like, hey, that's really cool, but I can't post that because you're not part of this program or this department or whatever. You don't have to deal with that in junior college. So go find somebody, whether it be in your community or at your school or a student. It's unbelievable how many students at your school are great at creative things, and get those people involved in your program to help you scream those successes across social media, across the internet, across any method of communication that you need to have to get those stories and things out there on what you, your team, your community, your players, what they're doing and what they're being successful at, because it's beyond winning a basketball game. It's beyond winning a championship. You know, if you have a kid in your community that's, or on your team, that has gone out into their community and done something that's just incredibly impressive and mature and helpful and impactful, scream that story out there. Cahill Fennell at Louisville right now is doing an incredible job as the ops guy. He put together this kind of 10 for 10, I forget what he calls it, 10 something program, where each week they're going out into the community and they're doing something. And part of that is showing everybody. So they're doing a really good job with, you know, filming that and telling those stories and showing what they're doing. They go out into the community and they give backpacks to these kids, and these players are being involved and all that sort of stuff. And they are showing everybody how committed they are to being impactful. And that's a big part about, you know, if we're going to talk about breaking the stigma of community college, is that community colleges, junior colleges, are a focal point of that community for the most part. There's very few that are in major cities, right? So you're in smaller towns, you're really, really connected to those people. And so within your community, yeah, for sure, you can tell those stories to people a lot easier. But if you can really get that information out to everybody, that's really where you can start impacting and start breaking that mindset that people have of like, okay, it's just somebody at some community college doing something. Like there is no difference, the impact that somebody at a community college can have than somebody in the ACC.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
to piggyback off what Brandon was just saying, I mean, we want to hear those stories. When you have those stories, send them to us, tweet them at us, share them with us on our social media, because we will reshare those stories, because we're only as good as our members. We're only as good as the people that are involved in our association. So when you get those, share. We're gonna share them as well. That's part of our mission and goal, is to do that. And that's why, you know, I'm very proud to partner with Doc to bring this program to you all, because we're only as good as the people that are involved, and that's what makes us special.
well, you know, and I think that's right. And I think one of the things, you know, a lot of coaches, depending upon, you know, how old you are and whether you grew up with social media or not, you know, I think the reality of it is it's the world we live in today. It's how people, that's how they consume, you know, information, you know. And so if you can kind of start to develop that, and I think what Brandon said is really right. There are people out there, you probably have students at your university, you probably have people in the community that really are experts. And I know a lot of coaches and ADs are really reluctant to get too involved in social media, but it's the world we live in right now. It allows you to control the message, you know, that you can navigate through, you know, that very difficult communication process. In the past, you know, we were kind of forced to live with what the mainstream media said, but now you can control the narrative. And I think that's pretty important. So, you know, in this time, you know, particularly with, you know, the COVID-19 going on, you may have a little bit more time than you do. Really start to delve into that and try to, you know, talk to people, come up with creative ways to get your message out there, to build that brand, both your personal brand and, you know, your university brand and your players' brands, you know, because as you build them, I think it'll help you recruiting, and, you know, kids will start to go, oh yeah, you know, I got a lot of exposure because they really had a great, you know, social media presence. But I just think that's so important in today's world. You know, one of the things, you know, kind of that kind of just reinforced what everybody says is, you know, there's this term cognitive dissonance. You need to continue to tell people things, and sooner or later they'll start to listen and they'll start to buy in. So I think, you know, that's really really important. So, I mean, that brand, Andy Farrell just put up on the chat room. If you got any questions for Chris or Brandon, please feel free to, let us know, and we'll get you on here. But
I wanted to add one more thing to that. We consulted on some hires this year at the junior college level for some head coach positions. And one of the things that I talked to the AD about on those hires was that coach's ability to get that brand out there. Was that coaches, whether they were doing it personally themselves or they were directing how that was done, how that was created, how that was put out into the community. Again, you don't have to, you personally, be a tech wizard to do these things. You don't have to be able to do Photoshop. You don't have to be able to edit video and all that sort of stuff. But I do think it's important that you understand how that works and how to direct somebody else to help with that sort of thing, because the athletic director that was doing the hiring said, hey, we really need to do a better job at our school of getting our story and our message out there of these candidates. Who have you seen that's really been able to do that? And I think those lessons that are learned through that process, again, whether it's from a technology standpoint or it's just simply an understanding of that marketing and how to direct that, not only helps at the junior college level, but it's going to help throughout the entire career, because you're in this to help young people. And the more that you can share those young people's stories, the more that you can get those things out there, it's going to help that young person in the future for lots of different things.
Well, and I think, one thing we kind of, have to make sure everybody understands is brand. When we talk about brand, what we are really saying is mind space. When your name or your college's name is thrown out there, what's the first thought that comes into their head? When you talk about, McDonald's, or something pops into your head. When you talk about John Wooden, there's a certain thought that comes into your head. Well, that's basically the brand. So you can control that brand for yourself. You can control that brand for your university and hopefully for your players. But it's reality. It's not something that you make up. It's what you are and what people say. So your brand can be controlled by certainly social media. Get out all those good things, but it's also about when somebody calls you on the phone, the way you address them, the way you talk to them, and so I think with your players, you have to help them understand how to build their own brand. And then in essence, what happens is you help yourself build your brand, and you help your college and the NJCAA build their brand. So I think that's just something to keep in mind. So it looks like we have a question here from Walter Shaw of Brunswick Community College. So Walter, unmute yourself and go on.
All right. Thank you, Doc. My question is for Chris Parker. You briefly mentioned with the TV launching with NJCAA TV, and people being able to share on that platform, with NJCAA's wanting to share on that platform. If schools are now live streaming their games, which more and more schools here are, what would be a best way for them to possibly get their content to the NJCAA for the NJCAA to share on their behalf?
Sure. So, part of the whole strategy is being able to actually do that on the NJCAA network through Presto Sports. So you'll just need to connect with Brian Luckett in our office. He's kind of working on the programming for everything, but we're working towards having now in a COVID year, a little different than a normal year. Because of COVID, everybody playing more together the same time frame. Our goal is to have a game of the week. So let's say, Walter, you were ranked number 24 in the country, and Cape Fear was ranked number 10 in the country. If y'all have a streaming platform, we're trying to find ways to put that out there for everybody to watch that game on our NJCAA network. Game of the week. Maybe Chipola's playing Northwest Florida in a 3 versus 12 matchup in the country. We're trying to get that out there, and it's all through our partnership with Presto Sports and making that stuff known. But we'll be sending out more and more information. We've released the initial information of that to the athletic directors, and we'll be continuing to share that outward. But again, our goal is to put more and more of your games on a national perspective, and allow potential student athletes, allow other individuals to watch those games, so they learn more and more about our association, about your colleges in particular, but understand the high level of competition that takes place during many of these games.
Thank you. My follow-up is, do you think that it will get to a point where multiple games will be able to be played in a week versus just one game of the week? Or right now you're just working on one game at a time if possible?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to get to, our goal is to get to where it's almost a constant. There are games going on at all times on different, say, channels within the network. We just have to take it step by step as a new process to get us there. But yes, our goal is to be able to stream and promote as many things as possible. So if you go on there, you may have 5 or 6 options at one time, but there still may be one game that's the game of the week, where others are still options to watch. But yeah, we're moving in that direction.
For the coaches that haven't set up live streaming or anything like that, sometimes there's concerns about cost or just even the know-how or anything like that. And it has become so incredibly easy and cheap to do things like that. I'm happy to answer any questions later on about how to do those sorts of things. I guarantee you there is somebody at your school, there is a student that is interested in doing some sort of video production in their future. There's some sort of sports broadcasting in their future that, if you put that information of need out there, that there'll be somebody that wants to be involved. We share a spreadsheet with every 4-year coach in the entire country from Division I on down to NAIA that we list every junior college school and their live stream site. And we send that out to every school so that, if you have a live stream, when you have a game, they know they can go there, they can click on it and they can watch it. If your space in there is blank, it's harder for those schools to really get involved with recruiting your kids. And, then we talk about whether you're using a video service to upload to, whether it be Synergy or something else like that. Like that technology is something that has become so important in the recruiting space. And that's something that's, it's not new, but it's just becoming even more and more important because now coaches are having to make, especially now when budgets are going to be cut next year and things like that. Those 4-year schools are saying, well, do I recruit the kid from the place that I can watch every one of his games? Or do I really try and dive into the one where it's hit and miss, hodgepodge here and there, little clips when I can find them and things like that? And where do I put my time, energy, and resources?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I know when we started streaming games back at VCU in the early 2000s, it was one of the things that gave us a little bit of an advantage, we felt, because, parents wanted to be able to watch their kids play. And we had to deal with the question. A lot of people said, well, we need to charge, we need subscriptions, generate money. And I said, no, this is a way that we can spread the word about who VCU basketball is. And, we want to expose our product, for the small dollars that we would actually gain from charging for subscription service. I was much more interested in spreading the word about who VCU was and letting people see us. And also I thought it was a big recruiting tool for our coaches. But yeah. So Brandon, talk a little bit to me about Project Rise and what that is and what you got going on with that.
Yeah. So Project Rise, which will be finally releasing the kind of details of who's all involved and stuff in the next couple of weeks here. Project Rise was an initiative that we started here this summer, where we wanted to elevate African-American coaches into Division I basketball. And, whether that was coming, we've got some candidates that are going to be coming from the junior college space. We've got some candidates that are going to be coming from the high school space as well. And if they want to get into junior college basketball, help elevate them into junior college, or vice versa, junior college up into Division I, and things like that. So we've got 10 candidates that we're going to be working with, where we're pairing them up with 10 mentors from the Division I space, and then going through a curriculum through the entire year. And, the kind of the way that we operate is we work with tons and tons of junior college coaches, and as much as we can, help them when they are looking for jobs, whether they want to get in Division II or NAI or Division I, or they want to be an ops guy, they want to be an assistant, things like that, and utilizing our network to help get them what they want to get into. And so Project Rise is really focused on the African-American coaching community and getting more African-American coaches into Division I basketball, because of, just the clear and obvious, bias that has existed for a while. We're going to do our part to try and change the script there.
So I just want to get this straight. So there's actually two components to it. One is basically having a mentoring program for each of the coaches, but you're also developing some curriculum, some content that you're going to share with them to help them. So it's kind of a two cycle approach.
Correct. So, if in a given month, we're actually looking for somewhere from 5 to 6 hours of commitment from the candidates. The mentors are going to be doing just an hour. Whether it's generally going to be a head coach that's going to be doing one-on-one mentoring with them. But we're going to be doing things like curriculum on emotional intelligence, or things like, we might have Amora Morgan come on and do a group meeting where he's going to talk about riding scout, at the Division I level. If somebody hasn't been at the Division I level before, what are those expectations like? What does that look like? Talking about what kind of questions do you ask your coach for what he wants to see in those sorts of things, any sort of tech questions and things like that, if people haven't worked with those different applications before, and really just kind of go over, everything that's involved in once you get that job, what are the kinds of things that you need to be thinking about? What do you need to be asking, and kind of prepare them as best we can, so that when it comes time, that mentor is not only ready to kind of back them up with saying, hey, I just mentored this guy for an entire season, you should hire him. But knowing that that information has been shared, that person has all the tools that they need to be successful at that next level.
And I want to make sure I got this right, but you're also going to do that with high school coaches and maybe with junior colleges who could mentor the high school coaches. So it's kind of a stair step approach. Is that right?
So the first one is really going to be elevating those coaches to Division I. And again, it's not that Division I is the end all be all of things, but there's a very specific problem that we're trying to address. And then to help support that for the next group is getting more African-American coaches into junior college basketball as well. And then vice versa, they would then move on to the next kind of elevation step. And so we're trying to just attack an issue as best we can with the things that we're good at, and our network and our ability to connect people is something that we're strong at. So we're going to use that to help as many coaches as we can, with an emphasis on the African-American coaching community.
Right. Well, I've got a question from Yusuf Fitzgerald from Hines Community College. Yusuf, unmute your computer and fire away.
Thanks, Doc. This question is kind of for Dr. Parker. How you doing, Brandon? Good to see you. Doc, I was wondering, with the different sports that you have to deal with at your level, you're dealing with all sports all the time. There are different services that work better for different sports. How do you go about looking at those partnerships in order for those different services to be utilized best for those sports? Sort of like synergy is good for us in basketball, for us to share our videos with all of the Division I coaches easily. But you'll have some schools that are encouraging huddle and different things, but football is good for huddle or other sports. How do you guys go about looking at that, like partnerships? Because I know a lot of times you guys are partnering with these groups. Do you take into account that, hey, this works good for this sport, that works good for that sport, and kind of trying to make some uniformity across the board, so it makes it where overall our ADs understand, hey, this is good for those sports, this is good for those sports, and then it makes it a little bit easier for us to share?
Sure. So the former process and the new process are somewhat different. What we've tried to do now is look at that holistic approach of what is the benefits of all of these different companies. And honestly, Huddle and Synergy is one that probably have had the biggest dialogue since I've been in this position about sports overall, not directly, but for sports overall. And it's a convoluted, complex discussion and decision. And what we've been able to do is really engage a lot of others to get their feedback and then make those decisions. Does it always work out best for everybody? Absolutely not. But let me say this. I've heard loud and clear recently that Synergy is certainly a product that basketball prefers. But I can say on the flip side, volleyball and many of the others are like huddle, huddle, huddle. And I forget what the other one The other one that was actually the huddle bought out, same situation. I mean, apparently they did well for basketball, but when they were bought by Huddle, it changed the dynamics again. And those circumstances are what I want to say cause our office frustration, is because we made an agreement with Company A. Company A gets bought by Company B, then we're tied to X, Y, and Z, and we're still under contract. So hopefully that answers your question.
It did. Thanks a lot, Doc. No, I think it was Crossover that got bought out.
That's that crossover. Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Coach, I'll
You're
tell you
welcome.
as well, from just because of how much I use film and things like that, don't be afraid to reach out to the companies. Like let's take Synergy, for example. Don't be afraid to reach out to Curly, who has typically headed up a lot of the junior college stuff. And they're willing to work with whatever. They're trying to get as much film out there as possible. They, in a way, understand that the more film they have on there, whether they're being paid by that junior college for other things or not, they know that product makes them more valuable to other people. And so, they're willing to work with you, but also they want to just get your film up there, even if you don't necessarily have user access to being able to see everybody else. Anybody that's not putting their stuff on Synergy wants to put it on there, reach out to Curly or those guys over there, and they can absolutely just kind of work with you to get your stuff out there so that your kids can be seen, because we all know this year is going to be bonkers, and film is king in this season. So
Good. Thanks, Brandon. We have a question from Zach Settembre from Tallahassee Community College. So Zach, fire away.
Yeah, mine's more of a lighthearted question. But first off, I want to say thank you to Doc Sander for putting this together, and Brandon Goble and Dr. Parker. Like, you guys have all been at the forefront of moving our JUCO basketball movement forward specifically. So from all of us, thank you. But Dr. Parker, what do we got to do to get Tallahassee in the game in the week, man? Chipola was 4th in the Panhandle last year. Northwest Florida was 0-12 and finished last. So I know we got another Tallahassee guy on here, and we got a Gulf Coast women's coach as well. So Tallahassee and Gulf Coast, we got to get on the map, man. We can't have last place and 4th place playing in the game of the week, man. Come on now, help me out.
Hey, I'm coming to your campus next Wednesday.
I know we're fired up, man. We're fired up. Hey, just reminds us that we're a little brother. We got to keep going, man. We got to do better, and we will.
No, yeah, I was more disappointed about last year's cancellation of the basketball championship than anything I've ever been in my entire life, because in my opinion, the field was so wide open to have so much wide variety of competitive basketball at the highest level across the board last year. And it was so exciting. And to see that, kind of come to that halt due to the COVID pandemic was heart-wrenching. But yeah, you guys do a phenomenal job.
Coach Gaffney's done a great job. They went first time since 1972. Hopefully we'll both be able to get back. But I know we're supposed to be breaking the JUCO stigma, so that was probably a JUCO question. So my bad. Maybe I'm JUCO forever. But I appreciate everybody in this. Seriously, this has been great.
Phil's certainly JUCO forever. I've known Phil for a long time when he was in Region 10, and he's a fine gentleman. He's a fine man. So, but I know Jeremy's on here as well as others, and I enjoy watching all you guys play basketball and coach basketball. So again, thanks for being a part of this. It shows your commitment to your student athletes and to our association. So thank you very much.
Good stuff, guys.
Well, good. And let me see, I think we have a question here, another question from Sean Gooding from Casper College. Sean?
Thanks for having me on here, guys. Dr. Parker, I kind of wanted to just ask you out of curiosity's sake, and and obviously there's a lot of nuances to these things, but mostly just out of curiosity on how much does the NCAA's decision making with eligibility and just general rule changes or things like that do you guys take into effect when it comes to your turn to kind of think about those things, and how do you guys really align that with leading into that? And obviously you have to think of Division I, Division II, and Division III at the same time.
Yeah, that's a great point when you're talking about breaking the stigma, is understanding that the communication with us, the NCAA, the NAIA, is all critical. People forget that we use the NCAA rule book. The NAIA uses the NCAA rule book. The only thing that's different is when we make exceptions for eligibility, or we make exceptions for delaying the 3-point line and things like that. So it's a combination of things. And even we'll go back to last year with the COVID-19 situation. You know, our environment and what we do and how we react is very different, because again, the monetary value, I mean, as an association, you know, we lost more than $600,000 in championships and other things last year, but that's still only pennies to the dollar compared to NCAA and even some of the NAIA. But as far as the decision making, we try to evaluate what they did, understand what they did and why they did, and then how does that affect us, both from an NJCAA Division 1, 2, and 3 level, as well as a transfer forward to NCAA Division 1, 2, and 3, and NAIA. And we have the most difficult jobs in college athletics, in my opinion. And again, I've been at the 4-year NCAA Division 1, I've been at a 4-year NCAA Division 2, I've been at a 4-year NCAA Division 3, and I've been at a JUCO level. And you guys get 2 years to change a life. You get 2 years, 4 semesters to do what most people get to do 4 years. And you buy and sell. It's a quick stock market transaction. You're recruiting individual. The whole time you're recruiting, you're turning around and changing the narrative to get that student onward. So from the back end of things, for us, it's essential that we understand the why on all decisions. And right now, just so you guys are aware, the hardest decision that we're looking at is, what about this year of eligibility? You know, how is that going to play out? And the eligibility committee is working very hard and very diligently to review all information, both from the NCAA Division 1, 2, and 3, and from the NAIA side, so that we can support the student athletes that move on or make the decision to return. And it's a double-edged sword as far as understanding the do's and don'ts. And that's why I call it the most difficult thing, because we have to lead, but there are times that we also have to follow. And the following still is an ability to lead while adversely making sure that we're doing the right things for our student athletes.
That was the part I was leading into. Thanks for addressing the elephant in the room.
Yeah, and we look to have a decision in December.
Mm-hmm.
Is kind of our goal, is to have a decision in December for everybody. The eligibility committee, I mean, I personally thank our board, thank our eligibility committee. These people have spent more time in the last 12 months getting together, helping us evaluate things than they've ever done in the past. And this is the elephant in the room that we're trying to make the best decision possible. And we're looking to have something in December.
Great question, Sean. I think that was one probably everybody kind of wanted to get a little insight on. We got one more question. This is probably the last one before we got to kind of call it quits, but I've got Brian Bender from Southwest Mississippi Community College.
Hey, this question specifically for Brandon. Just want to say we appreciate you and everything you've done for everybody on this call. You know, just being an advocate for JUCO over the last few years. You know, what mistakes have you seen specifically in the recruiting process that JUCO coaches need to be on the lookout for as we protect these student athletes, especially in these times? And kind of piggybacking off what Coach just asked about, you know, extra year of eligibility and things like that. What do you think specifically, Brandon?
So I guess I'll answer the first one here. The mistake part of it is always interesting, because it's not necessarily a true like mistake, but like brutal honesty is something that's really hard when you have all of these relationships you're trying to juggle, and you know, you don't want to upset somebody over here, but you don't want to lead somebody else on over here, and you have all these different things. And I think I've seen a lot of times where coaches get themselves in trouble is just not being brutally honest with whether it be recruitment, whether it be what a kid's, you know, academic stuff looks like. You know, there's so many layers and levels to all of this stuff that I think if you focus on the being absolutely 100% straightforward part, it's just going to end up working out better in the end, whether it be what level can this kid play at. You know, we talk about breaking the stigma of junior college. Well, there is a stigma that's out there that a lot of kids that go on to the 4-year level don't end up maybe producing right? And so was that because of them personality wise? Was it because that they didn't do what they needed to do academically? Or was it because that, they just went too high, or they went to the wrong fit, or they went to the wrong style, and things like that? And sometimes it's because a coach is afraid of upsetting somebody that's recruiting that kid, instead of saying, you know what, coach, I don't think this is a good fit for you. You got to do your best to make sure that your kids have every option available to them, and then let them make that choice with your guidance and things like that. But at some point, like, you just have to be super honest with, what are they capable of? What's a good fit? All that sort of thing. Because I tell you what, I was talking to a coach about this yesterday. A low major or a mid major or a Division II success story means so much more than a high major irrelevant story. And it helps your program, and it helps the rest of junior college as well. When somebody goes out there and goes to East Tennessee State and just, kills it. And maybe they were talking to Tennessee, instead of going to Tennessee and riding the pine at Tennessee or something like that, goes to East Tennessee State and really tells this incredible, successful story. Like, that helps all of junior college, not just the school that kid came from. So, just that brutal honesty piece is something, and it's hard for me too. When somebody says, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I just have to, tell them the things that I don't necessarily want to tell them, because I know it's either going to upset them or whatever. And you just kind of work through it. But brutal honesty piece. And then what was the second part about what I think about the extra year of eligibility piece? Was that it,
Yep.
Coach? Yeah. So,
Yep.
I don't know, Chris, I guess I'm about to say what I think you should do. I think you have to. I think we're in a time where everybody just has to figure it out, and we're going to have to figure out what makes sense for helping the whole. Unfortunately, it's going to hurt a few. There is not going to be an answer that is perfect for everybody, both at whatever the NCAA ends up deciding, whatever the NJCAA ends up deciding. We're going to have to figure out what helps the most kids and do that. And that might end up hurting somebody else, by accident, or, just whether it's a high school kid that suddenly doesn't have an opportunity that thought he was going to have because now somebody is staying, things like that. What we can't do is we can't lose an entire generation of junior college kids. We can't have this whole group of kids that all of a sudden are standing there going, well, I've been here 2 years, or I've been here 3 years, and now I have nothing else to go on to, because all of a sudden we either, had to shut things down, or just wasn't able to get the exposure or whatever. Like, we just can't lose an entire generation of kids. So we just got to figure it out. And I think one of the things that the NJCAA has always been so good about is just figuring it out and addressing, problems. Oddly enough, the NJCAA has been ahead of the NCAA a lot of times in addressing problems early, and, getting things out there and getting things accomplished, where the NCAA sometimes is behind on some of that stuff. So, I have faith that Chris is going to, make the decision here with his people that's going to best help the most number of kids possible. And then we just figure it out.